All right, now we're gonna do a little housekeeping. And what I mean by that is we're going to learn about two words that throw students off and they don't really understand them. Actually, one of them is one of the first words you see when you open up the Java programming language in Programming 1. And the other one you see all the time, but probably don't know what it means or may not know what it means. So I thought we'd delve into those real quickly so that you'll know what they mean because they're really simple, but for some reason, sometimes students don't get it. Okay? So one of them is this term final. Okay? And one of them is this term static. Okay, so there's static and final. All right? And they're both modifiers to variables. All right? So I could have a final in x. Okay? And I can also have a static int x or something like that. Okay? So final is the Java version of a constant. All right, and what does that mean? Well, if a variable is final, okay, that means it can be set once and never again. Okay, it can only be set once and never again. Can only be set once. Okay, so if I have final int x, I don't have to set it up here. I could set it whenever, but once x is set, that's it, all right? You cannot change it, all right? I was trying to think of an analogy for this, and I kept on saying cement. Like, you can write your name once in cement, and then once it dries, that's it. You gotta live with what's written in the cement. So for the run of the program, whatever x gets set to, that's what it's going to be for that whole program. It can never change, okay? For that whole program run, okay? So it can be set once, all right? And then we have static, all right? And static is used in classes in both variable. Well, we'll talk about methods. You can have static variables and why don't we just talk about static methods too? And you can have, it's used in classes, all right? And remember, a class is a cookie cutter, okay? So we've got this cookie cutter, right? And we're able to make our little star cookie objects or instances, right? All right? And in the ball case, just to make this more concrete, we have a cookie cutter that's a ball, or it's a ball factory. They'll sometimes say the cookie cutter is the factory. I like cookie cutter, but if you like factory, that's better. And I can make ball A and ball B and ball C. And ball A has its own center x, right? Center y, velocity x, velocity y. And ball B has its own center x, center y, velocity x, velocity y. And ball C has its own blah, blah, blah. Okay, you get it, right? But what if I wanted a variable that all of the ball instances shared, okay? Like a variable that was like number of ball instances in the world. Okay, so I could say static num ball instance is in existence, right? Static int num ball instances. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna run out of space, but you get the idea. Static int num ball instances. Okay. And that means, and then every time I create a ball instance in the constructor, I add 1 to that, okay? And what ends up happening is all of these, if it's static, that means it belongs to the class itself. It doesn't belong to these instances. I mean, it belongs to those instances too, but through the class itself, okay? So static means that ball has, it's like the ball factory itself, or the ball cookie cutter has a variable. Num, I'm just gonna call them num balls. It's crazy how I come up with these names. Num balls. Okay, and this has a variable called numBalls, and it belongs to ball itself, right? And it tells us how many balls are in existence. If you follow the logic on this, it actually kind of makes sense, right? Because if I want to know how many balls are in existence, if there's no balls in existence, if I haven't created a ball yet, I should still have a value for how many number of balls in existence. 0, right? So maybe we start this thing out at 0, okay? And we put it in the same place that we put our other private variables. We just put the static keyword in front of it, okay? And so it's 0, and that means we can still access the number of balls. We could say if, well then how do we access this variable if we don't have the actual values? Really easy. We just use the name of the class, okay? So if we don't have any instances, but this belongs to the class itself, we just use the name of the class. So you can write the name of the class dot, and one of the things, all the methods will come up if you have methods, but one of the things that will also come up is a static variable, numBalls, okay? And we can check if numBalls equals 0, right? And if numBalls equals 0, there's no balls in the world or something like that, right? And then later on, we could check if numBalls, right? If we add some balls to the world and we say if ball.numBalls equals 15, okay, then we know there's 15 balls in the world. I know I ran out of space, okay? You can also get to the static variable numBalls through ball A, ball B, and ball C. So we have ball A, right? You could say ball A dot numBalls, and that counts too. All right, and ball A's numBalls is the same thing as ball B's numBalls. All right, these two are exactly the same, and they both refer to the numBalls of ball itself, of the ball class itself. Okay, so static belongs to the class itself. All right, you can use a static variable before any instances are created, all right? And you can get the static variable value from the class or from each of the instances. So it's like all of these instances share this one value, which they do, right? Because it belongs to the class, and all of these objects are instances of this class. So it's shared between all of them, okay? Not just the field, right, like center x, center y, center velocity x, velocity y. Those are our state variables, right? But the actual value, the actual variable itself, there's only one numBalls in existence, right? And that is shared by all the instances and is part of the class itself, right? And we can get to it by the class itself. So that's static, all right? It means shared by all in class world classes. Sorry, we'll keep that there. Classes. It belongs to the class. Okay, and then shared by all class instances. And I know I said I was going to talk about methods. Shared by all class instances, okay? So static int numBalls belongs to the class ball, and it's going to be shared by all the class instances of ball. I'll see you in the next lecture. Oh, and I know I said I was going to talk about static methods, and I didn't get to it, but I think that's okay. We'll just do another video and go into static methods so you can understand them a bit more.